Deja Perez back with another edition of What's Poppin', the podcast. This is a very special edition of What's Poppin', the podcast. Obvi, we're representing Hennessy today. And I have my good friend here. He is the national ambassador who just so happens to also be a mixologist for Hennessy. Jordan, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So first off, tell everyone how you became the national ambassador for Hennessy.
Lots of practice.
Okay.
So no, it's my job is all about education and talking to people, whether it's educating on cocktails,
Okay.
other different ways to drink it, or what cognac is in the first place. And so
Let's start there.
yeah, I got the job through that kind of thing. I'm very passionate. I worked in a lot of bars,
Okay.
and I loved when people came to the bar and wanted to learn about different things. So cognac is a really old category of spirits. It's, Hennessy's been around for 254 years.
Wow.
It's been around a long time, but it starts as white wine.
Does
And
it?
Yeah, it originally started as, people were trying to, exploring the world and trying to bring this wine they loved from Europe all over the world. Wine didn't travel that well back then. Didn't have these preservatives, so what they started to do was distill it so that it would be this fortified spirit and that it would travel better. And when it got to its final destination, you'd cut it with water or another mixer or something like that, and you'd get this semblance of the original white wine strength or flavor.
Who knew?
But barrels were used. That was the shipping element. Barrels were basically like the FedEx boxes of their day.
Got it. Okay.
That's what you got everything to things. So when they shipped in those barrels for long periods of time, it started to extract the flavor. You started to get all this beautiful like vanilla, caramel spices from the oak. And then you got something that was a combination of the fruit from the wine and then the barrel and the spice and everything nice.
I'm so here for that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you studied cognac. We've now crossed the cognac. Why don't we talk about what these different Hennessy bottles are all?
Okay, so Hennessy is the #1 selling cognac in the world.
Obvious.
And if we only sold this one, Hennessy VS, we'd still be the largest. That's how important this is to the cognac world.
Okay.
So this is a strong, bold cognac. If you can say one thing about any Hennessy cognac, it's bold.
Okay.
If there's a way to do big flavor, we're gonna take it. And so this one goes in new oak. That's not a rule for cognac, that's a rule for things like bourbon. But
Okay.
for us, it's a stylistic choice. So
Okay.
we put it in new oak and it goes up to 8 years old.
Oh.
Hennessy Black is put in much older barrels. So barrels that have been used for VSOP and XO.
Okay.
So a lot of the big oak flavors are gone. So what you get is the ability to just rest and kind of harmonize a spirit without getting all these big oak flavors. So it's much more lighter, it's much more floral and light fruit. Hennessy Black is very similar to Hennessy Pure White, which is only available in the Caribbean that a lot of people ask me about. This is only available in North America, the same way Pure White is only available in the Caribbean. Hennessy VSOP goes up to 15 years old, and it goes in a barrel that's sort of in between these two.
Okay.
So it's got some spice, not as much as the VS, and it's got a lot of the fruit and the floral, but not really as bright as the black.
Got
to
it.
me, this is my desert island cognac because it fits kind of both needs very well.
Okay.
I like it neat, I like it on the rocks, I like it in a cocktail. It works in a lot of different ways.
Multifaceted. Okay.
Something like XO is up to 30 years old. That's something that's
Wow.
big and robust and bold and great for kind of celebrating like important moments in life or just having a great time. I think the moment you open something that good, you've created the moment or you've helped to create that memorable moment that's going to be.
Got it.
This is something altogether different.
Okay.
Master Blender Selection number 3 is a rare cognac. It is a singular batch, so we're never going to see this again.
Okay.
It's come out very recently. When it's gone, it's gone. We're never going to see it.
Okay.
It is the very first blend of our 8th generation Master Blender. So Master Blender Selection number 1 and 2 were created by his uncle, who retired a couple of years ago, and Renaud Filiu du Juron was able to create this as his very first blend.
Wow. That's some history. Okay. So we've talked about our cognac, so we have a history on that. Now, how did you perfect the science of becoming a mixologist?
Trial and error, to be honest. It's a lot of bad cocktails before you can make good cocktails. You try different flavors, you try different flavor combinations, and sometimes you think of something in your head and you're like, that's totally gonna work.
And it totally doesn't.
And it totally doesn't work. And you're like, that's how I know what not to do.
Got
so
it.
it's a lot of that, but there are some rules to it
Okay.
that maybe you don't know at the beginning, but some of it is equal parts sour to sweet. We used to say 2 parts sour to 1 part sweet. That's a rule that dates back to before we even used syrups where we were using just raw sugar. So if you look at something like a simple syrup or a honey syrup like we're using today, I'm kind of watering down the honey so it's easier to play with.
Got it.
So it's equal parts honey and water. That would only be 1 part sweet.
I know sour.
And 1 part water.
Got it.
So then if I add, let's say, an ounce of honey syrup, I need a full ounce of either lime or lemon or some other really tart element to balance that out. Now, if I don't use either, then I don't need to. But if I add something like a liqueur, I might need some sour to balance that out, or I might need some bitter to balance that out.
Okay.
So a good cocktail is all about balance. And everybody wants a full glass of alcohol until you give them a full glass of alcohol.
Facts.
Like, oh, I don't want a lot of mixer, like hook me up. And then that same person always shows up, or their significant other comes back to the bar later on, says, hey, can you
lighter?
top this up, like a little more cranberry, a little more soda? You're like, I know you. I've seen you before.
You're the one that wanted it all, right?
So balance is what we want. Like in food, you wouldn't eat a steak that was too salty.
Right.
You wouldn't eat a dish that was too spicy. You want that balance. You want all the flavors coming together well, and that's where a perfect cocktail comes in.
So is there a particular drink that is your like go-to? Some friends are coming over. Let me just whip this up real quick. What's your favorite?
Well, I mean, we can do one right now. Some of the easy ones.
Okay.
I like this one with Hennessy Black because it's hot out right now. Light, bright, refreshing is what we're going for.
Okay.
But it still has, it still has some spirit in it.
Okay.
So we're going to use 1.5 ounces of Hennessy Black,
Okay.
and to play with the light flavors, we're going to add some lime juice. So lime is something that goes with a lot of white spirits normally, vodka, gin, lighter rums. When you get into heavier things like whiskey sours and elements like that, you tend to go lemon. But Hennessy Black, going in those old barrels, doesn't get a lot of that barrel flavor, so it can go with either really, really easily.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to use 3/4 ounce of lime juice and 3/4 ounce of a honey syrup. So this is equal parts honey to water to allow it to like easily mix. Now, you could do the same thing with sugar and it would be called simple syrup or anything like that, but the idea is that we have equal parts. And in this recipe, this would be called like a base recipe because you've got 2 parts cognac to 1 part sour and 1 part sweet.
Oh, I see,
with the syrup. So
Okay.
we'd call it a 2-1-1. So it's really easy to remember proportions and really easy to put it together. Now this cocktail, I could serve in a martini glass or a coupe glass if I wanted it neat like that. But for this, I'm gonna serve it in a rocks glass with ice because again, it's hot out there, I wanna keep it cool.
Okay.
When you shake, you wanna put some effort into it because a shake needs to aerate the drink where you get some like nice foam on top.
Yes.
It's meant to dilute the drink. So in a shake, you should be diluting quite a bit, like 30%.
Oh,
Like
really?
breaking up the ice into smaller bits that are gonna melt faster, whereas a stir, you're not gonna break the ice. And of course, you're gonna chill. A stir or a shake, it's still gonna chill, but you can already see kind of frost forming on this. So if you see a bartender just shaking like that,
They're doing a half-ass job.
they're doing a half-ass job because you're not breaking stuff up.
Okay.
You wanna,
Okay. Put a little elbow in it. Okay.
It's also important to not stare directly at a camera when shaking because it looks creepy.
And I imagine, like, I'm very clumsy. I feel like I'd be the person that shakes and hits herself in the face with the shaker thing. So
Yes.
it'd be a whole situation.
So we're gonna strain this out.
And what are you straining it for?
I'm straining it for a number of reasons. You don't always need to strain, but I like to strain because I want the little ice particles out because those are gonna dilute more. I've diluted all I want in the shake.
Okay.
This is a perfect drink. I don't want to take the ice from this and pour it into that because
Got
it's
it.
already broken up. So it's going to possibly over dilute.
I see.
Now on top of this, we
Garnish?
just want to garnish. You could use a lime wheel, a lime wedge, but I've got these beautiful little lime twists and you create something great.
Thank you. I assume this is mine, right?
Yes,
I'm about to get this out. Nice.
responsibly.
Oh, that's good.
Super simple, super easy. The light floral notes, the honey's gonna bring those out. It's gonna create something that's really, really beautiful and
light.
really easy to make. Yeah.
Okay.
And a lot of people would look at that saying, this doesn't look light, and yet it plays
Right.
with those light flavors. It was called black because black was a premium element. You've got like the black Amex card, the black on black
Right, right,
Mercedes,
right.
the black tuxedo, the black like mini dress. All of those things is a sense of luxury, and that's kind of where black was. Smoother rendition of something than Hennessy VS.
This is delicious.
So something else you might want a longer drink at times. Something that I always thought worked really well together was sweet tea or black tea with like an iced tea with Hennessy VS because the flavors from that barrel, the spice, all those things go really nice with those flavors of tea. So in this case, we're gonna do a Hennessy Sweet Tea. So I'm going to use 1.5 ounces of Hennessy VS.
Okay.
I am going to use...
This is really good. I'm sorry. I've never had it before.
Don't apologize.
This
It's
really
great.
good.
I think it's a great drink. I've got...
And what's it called?
I call that, well, that one's a little bit of a take on a black gimlet.
Okay.
Because I've added the honey syrup to bring out the floral. I thought it was appropriate for today. But you could call it, if you walked into a bar and ordered a Hennessy Black Daiquiri,
That's what this should be.
that would be a very similar thing.
Okay.
So I've added 2 ounces of unsweetened black tea. If you wanted to make this simply, you could get your sweetened black tea and just add Hennessy to it.
Okay.
But to make it more complex, I'm using the unsweetened so that I can add honey to add another layer of complexity.
Okay.
So I'm going to add 3/4 of an ounce of the honey syrup, which is not all honey. And then I'm going to add 1/2 ounce of lemon juice.
Okay.
You can find this recipe on Hennessy.com as well, where
Okay.
you can find 70 or so other recipes.
Wow.
I'm gonna add a little bit of Grand Marnier because the orange in this is really gonna bring it all out. I think orange works with tea, and orange certainly works with Hennessy. Orange to Hennessy is like bacon to a chef. You know, when you taste that wonderful thing in a restaurant and you don't know what's in it, and then they come back and tell you it's some part of the pig, yeah. Then we're gonna shake this up.
Can I try to shake it?
Yes, you can. So we always want to put the shaker tin on. One side should be flush, one side should be askew.
Oh, not
Hit
completely
it, and
on.
here's the,
Whew.
if
Okay.
it doesn't do that,
You're not on right.
you're gonna end up covered in your own drink. And then we always flip it upside down so
Okay.
that if we didn't get that right, and I'm making it for you and you're sitting across from me, and it breaks or comes apart,
It breaks towards
it's
me.
coming on me, which is why most bartenders wear black.
You're full of information. All right, tell me again how to shake.
So take this.
It's a two-hander situation,
Hand
right?
on there, hand on there, and you want to go red light, yellow light, green light, red light, yellow light, green light, and
Okay.
hard.
I feel like everything else is jiggling, like on me. Okay, is that
Perfect. So yeah, the general rule is if it's uncomfortable to hold, you're in a pretty good place.
good? Okay. But I got bubble.
Yes, you did.
Okay.
And that means you've done a good job. That means you've shaken it hard enough to break it up. So for this, we're gonna garnish with an orange because the orange is gonna bring out some of the Grand Marnier we already used. And like I said, orange plays with all these flavors very, very well. The tea also helped to make that bubble. So you get something that's really beautiful and
And
super
why do you
refreshing.
rub the rim of it with the thing? Just to give it the taste? Is that a
A
trick
little
of yours?
bit of that, a little bit of that taste, a little bit of that oil on the rim. Some people, you can even take it on a martini glass and rub the stem. Realistically, it looks really good. It brings out the flavor, and it's. I want somebody to ask a question, because if somebody asks that question, why did you do that, and I can answer in a confident way, then maybe I've gained your trust a little bit more.
Okay.
And then maybe I can guide you to a new kind of drink or a new kind of cocktail. It's like when you go to that restaurant and you trust that waiter.
Right.
You say, what should I order? What's your favorite?
Okay.
If you don't know their taste buds or they've steered you wrong in the past, you're probably not going to do that.
100%.
But if you can gain their trust, you can guide them in a new direction. And to me, that's what hospitality is all about. And that's why we would go to a bar.
Good. I'm here for it. I like it. You don't taste the Grand Marnier at all. Yeah, you actually don't taste the Hennessy at all.
It's just a little bit. You get elements of it. And so that
Yeah.
you're looking to something to provide different flavor notes in different moments there. So you get the
Yeah.
tea and you get some of that
It is more
spice
tea.
and you get some of that red fruit coming from this. Because if I made this without Hennessy and without Grand Marnier, you'd definitely notice.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. So if someone comes up to you and says, you know what, I've never really tried cognac, what would be your suggestion?
I would ask them what they normally drink or how do they normally like something. So for instance, we can say, we talked about the origins of cognac being that of, a wine concentrate.
Correct.
So the way they would drink it historically was then to ship it off to a far enough place, they'd ship in those barrels, and then they would cut it down with water, later in generations later, the sparkling water, other mixers to create a semblance of that original light flavor. So if you look at this, I'm using Hennessy VSOP because I think Hennessy VSOP works in a lot of different ways. But then if I just top with a little soda water, get a little bit of that sparkling, water it down a little bit so it's not just a straight spirit. orange twist because orange goes super well with cognac.
Okay.
You could get this in a taller glass, call it a highball. It's super refreshing. There's no sugar added to it.
Okay.
And yet all that flavor from the cognac comes out in a lighter way.
It does, absolutely. Okay, so what else are we making?
So the last one is something very, very simple that you got to look at flavors and how they work together. We look at something like Hennessy and you get that oak flavor, you get those spices from the barrel. Well, what if we take that and we want to amplify those? You know, we've used them to work with the other products, but if we want to amplify them, we can see where that goes. So using 1.5 ounces of Hennessy VS, I want that big spice from the barrel. And then I'm gonna add some simply ginger beer or a good quality ginger ale or something like that. The spiciness of the ginger beer is gonna go with those oak notes. To this, you can add any sort of citrus, any sort of wedge. In this case, like a lime twist works really well. And you take something like that and you get something really, really beautiful.
Okay. I like.
And now, master
Like
blender.
hints of the ginger beer. Like teensy hints of it.
Exactly, it adds something to the table and there's a reason you'd use the ginger beer in that way.
That's the one I wanted you to open. All right, let's talk about this one.
So, master blender Renaud had been training with his uncle for 17 years to take over the job.
Wow.
One of the things that makes Hennessy great today is we're on the 8th generation of the Hennessy family and the 8th generation of the Filleul family. The Filleul family have been our master blenders since 1800.
Oh, wow.
So when our founder, Richard Hennessy, died, James Hennessy, his son, took over the business and realized to grow the business, he would need to be the ambassador. He would need to be the guy that went around, sold it, and sold the name of Hennessy through, he was the first marketing campaign.
Okay.
I want to meet this man is great. I would like to try his product. That was kind of the ethos back then.
Okay.
But he couldn't very well do a good job of traveling if he had to be in Cognac making the product. So he had a great trust in Jean Filleul because Jean Filleul was his father's cellar master. And so he said, you already know how to do this. You make the cognac, and then it's been a beautiful kind of symmetry between the two families where they, one trusts, we trust the Filleul's to make great cognac, and the Filleul's trust the Hennessy's not to make poor decisions that would affect the business any other way. So this, to me, is a life lived in cognac summarized in a bottle.
Wow.
Where
Okay.
he's been training for 17 years, but he's been living in cognac his whole life.
Okay.
So the sights, the smells of what his family is doing, his Uncle Jan, the Hennessy's, and seeing the grapes in the field and all that, that's this coming together. So when I taste cognac, I like to smell, because you get floral, fruit, and then spice from the barrel, and then you can taste.
Oh, that's different than the other ones.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because when he first opened the bottle, I was like, kind of smells a little like the other Hennessy's, you know what I mean? And he's like, it's gonna taste different, I promise, but it does.
You're gonna get a lot of similarities between some, because at the end of the day, it's all coming from white wine, from the same grape, Uni Blanc, and then it's all going in barrels from the Limousin forest. But how much has that barrel been used before? Is it a new barrel? Is it a barrel that's been used for 20 years? Does it not have a lot of flavor left to give? And each eau de vie, every field, every grapevine is going to be different year to year, field to field. So harnessing those differences, getting a plethora of different flavors and bringing them together, that's where we get to create something unique and interesting, where you can't age VS longer and get VSOP. You can't age VSOP longer and get XO.
Right.
They're distinctly their own.
Right.
We like to say age is not a thing. Maturity and age are two vastly different things. Just because it's older doesn't mean it's going to reach maturity at that point. This would be worse if we aged it longer. It's right for right then in that moment in time.
Got it.
This is a selection of that moment in time, an expression of the moment. And so this is very special because it's never going to be seen again.
Got it.
You can still find it in some stores.
And also just the history behind it. That's also what adds to the amazingness of it all.
Yeah.
Wow. So, okay, we've sampled quite a few products here. I probably need to have some water at some point, but it's all right. Is there a place online where someone's like, you know what, I'm having a get-together. I don't know what to make, but my drink of choice is Hennessy. What should I do? Where can people find that information?
You can go to Hennessy.com and go to the drink section. There's going to be a few questions that you can ask, or you can just search drink by drink, but it'll ask you, what Hennessy do you have? Do you have Hennessy Black? Do you have Hennessy VSOP? Do you like things fruity? Do you like things strong? Do you like things weak? And then it's going to offer you up a number of suggestions on what you can make. Or, you want a punch recipe. You want a sangria. You want something big because you're throwing that event.
Really? You can make a Hennessy sangria? Mm-hmm. I didn't know that. Okay.
All on the website.
Okay, fantastic. All right, I do have a couple more questions though. You are the national ambassador of Hennessy. Mm-hmm. What does that entail for people that are not familiar with what you do?
I go around and I educate and do things just like this to talk about Hennessy, to talk about cognac, because there's a lot of Hennessy lovers out there. But then there's still people that don't know it, haven't had it in the right way. That's what cocktails are for. If you don't like neat spirits, maybe somebody you know and love drinks Hennessy neat, and you've tried their glass and you say, that's big for me.
Right, it's too much.
So let's try it in a cocktail. Let's water it down. Let's move into a different element. What do you normally drink? Let's bring it in that direction, because one common thing of all cocktails is they often have fruit in them of some kind.
Huh.
So we're made from fruits.
That's true.
We go really well with fruits. There's far more things it pairs well with than it doesn't, and so you can highlight different aspects of what you like or what you don't like. Are you having a big, heavy meal? Maybe you want it neat for that, or on the rocks. Are you having a light, bright afternoon, barbecue, and you're having light, bright appetizers? Then maybe you want to go to a little bit brighter cocktails. Okay. There's a lot of different ways you can go, and there's a lot of different things. The basic thing around Hennessy is it's so versatile to put in cocktails.
Now, the color variation of it, is it because the actual cognac is darker, or is it predicated on what you mixed it with?
With cocktails, it'll be a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B.
Okay.
With the actual cognacs themselves, it's the different oak barrels. So the newer the oak barrel, the darker it's going to make the cognac.
Oh.
Because there's more flavor to extract from the barrel.
Okay.
If you think about oak barrels, it's a little bit like making tea. You use a fresh tea bag, you get strong, flavorful tea.
Correct.
You might use that same tea bag again.
And get less.
And you get slightly a semblance of that original flavor. God knows why you'd use it a third time. You'd get lightly off-colored water. We'll get you more tea bags. But the same is true of a barrel. A brand new barrel is going to produce a lot of flavor, going to give a lot of flavor to the spirit. Therefore, we need to pick an eau de vie, which is water of life. That's our raw distillate when it's fresh off the still. It's clear. It's going to absorb as much as it can. So if there's a lot of flavor to give, it's going to absorb it all. We need to pick a big eau de vie to handle new oak, whereas we can have much more delicate, bright, or floral ones to go up against a more aged barrel because it's not going to be as aggressive.
I see. Okay, well, I think that's amazing, and I thank you so much for
Thank you
all
very
of
much
your
for having me.
skills. And how can people follow you?
They can follow me at Jordan Mixes, and I'm online running around the country.
And where's
doing
the
a lot
next
of education. The next stop is I'm going to be in Houston and Dallas in a week or so.
Okay, sounds good. Well, when you're back on this side of town, make sure you come see us again, okay?
Perfect, will do. Cheers.
Perfect. Cheers. And thank you for all my delicious drinks. Thank you guys for joining us for another edition of What's Poppin' the Podcast on 93.9 WKYS.